Karen, how are you?
Good morning, very well, thank you.
Ready with my cuppa, ready for a chat, and it's going to be a good one. Do you know
I
why?
hope so. I hope it'll be very informative.
It is yours. We're talking today about choosing the right website platform for your business. And I like the fact that you and I, Karen, come at it from different perspectives. Karen, obviously, Queen co-host here, and also website creator extraordinaire. I've worked with you. I know so many people have worked with you, and I absolutely love your approach. Very similar in the sense of we don't want clients to sort of waste money, time and resources unnecessarily, but equally, if you have an ambition for your business and you're looking to scale and grow, like what are the best options? Because sometimes the cheapest isn't the best option. And what I have noticed is that you do it from very much a functional and a very much, your business, your website is the window shop, the shop window, sorry, not enough coffee today, the shop window of your business. I come in it from the point of, even though you may have a retail business, your website is actually the hub of your marketing activity, and that all roads usually, most often, should point to your website where you can capture and nurture, because all the other space is rented. So your website is the only thing that you own, and therefore your email list is the only thing that you own. Therefore, we have to make sure that it's working, but also the user journey is correct, and that you're not losing customers. And I've seen it myself with businesses. Some people come to me with a social media or PR activity, a plan, and then you go and look at their website and it doesn't support it. So let's start from the very beginning, like the sound of music. Very good place to start.
You're going to break out in song.
I would just start like rolling around in the hills. Why not? So we were talking about websites on LinkedIn, and everyone remembers, which was quite funny. I did have a chuckle reading some of those responses, because it was like, oh my God, my first website, because that was the question. Do you remember your first website? What was the functionality? How it's changed from what it looked like to how it's working now? Do you remember your first website, Karen? I was going to ask you.
I do remember my own one, but I do also remember the one that I first created for someone, which I coded in HTML4. And I'm just like, I really do not miss those days.
Oh my God. See, so I was laughing because mine was so static, and I was so proud because it took me a year before I had my business. When I had my business, it took me about a year, didn't it? And I can't say too much because Karen was the one that...
You can do what you like. I mean, I've learned so much since then, because I was right at the beginning of my journey then too. I'd only done a couple of websites, I think, so I was still learning.
No, but it was what was available. When I think about it now, like we could have a really great page now that actually introduced somebody to their business that isn't, before you had to buy the hosting, it had a process. It was very blockish. Whereas now you can put up a page that could be your holding page, as it were, but enough information for people to go, oh, they exist. Or there's an offer. Like you have sales pages now, or lead pages, instead of a website. So there's a different way of talking about it, which we'll go into. But you talk about the 3 key website platforms. Do you want to go through it and perhaps give us the pros and cons and why it's important to consider them for, various businesses? Because it will vary on what the business objective is.
Definitely. I mean, I just to say one thing, that obviously it does depend, you want the client to sort of make a good investment and make the right choice, but sometimes the budget's not there. And especially if they're starting out. I mean, I know during current times as well, people are a bit strapped for cash because they haven't had the work. But also what it's pointed out is, even if you've got a retail business, a bricks and mortar, you need to have an online presence as well, because obviously being shut, a lot of them were just like, oh, okay, got nothing now, what we're going to do about it. So I think it's really key to establish what's right for them and at the stage of their own business journey. So quite often when people come to me, I mean, I personally am a WordPress designer, so I use WordPress to create my websites. But if someone comes to me and goes, what, I don't have the budget to invest in that now, I will advise on other options. So you've got the 3 key ones, which are there's free ones, which tend to be hosted. And that means you're not hosting them yourself. You're not in control of them. They're on a hosted platform. You've got the paid hosted ones, and then you've got self-hosted ones as well. So there's quite a lot in each. So I'll go through first of all on the free options. So you've got so you can get ones, for example, you want an email address and website hosting, you can actually get website builders that come with your hosting package. Personally, I've never used them before, but I do know a few people who do, and they can be quite limited into what you can do. So, but sometimes this can be really good if you're just starting out. You just get, you maybe a couple of pages that you can set up, and it's possibly quite easy to use. You've also got Google and Adobe Spark sites. So that, again, if you just want to get something up that's really simple and quick, a 1 or 2 page site, brilliant. Those are really good for just starting out and getting a presence online. You've also got Wix, which can be free. And that seems to be one of the most popular. So people starting out who are on a budget or want to do a DIY or anything like that, a lot of them go with Wix. You do end up paying when you want to when you want to do certain things. If you want to upgrade to have certain functionality or anything like that, then you do end up paying. But it's something that you can use to set up really quickly. Right. But the downside is, obviously, if you ever want to grow that functionality on there might be paid options to expand on that. I don't know Wix very well, but it can get more expensive, and you tend to then pay those on an ongoing monthly basis. If you then want to move off that platform, you literally have to start again. I mean, you could copy and paste, and there sometimes are ways to export things like blogs and that, but you are literally going to have to, start again, because the way that they build those platforms, everyone uses their own kind of coding underneath it. I know this is going a bit techie, geeky, but there's lots of different computer languages, from PHP to JavaScript to C++. There's all sorts of different languages, and they all kind of build them in their own way. So you can't just go, oh, I'll just take all that and export it and then plonk it on another platform. So those are kind of the free sort of options that I know of. There's hundreds out there, but I'm just kind of sticking with the main popular ones. Mm-hmm. Then when it comes to hosted ones, which kind of have a bit more flexibility, you've got the most popular ones are Squarespace, Shopify, and WordPress.com. And I'm going to go through the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, because there are different options. So Squarespace, again, it's a hosted thing. You pay a monthly fee, really easy to use. If you want more customization, you generally have to hire someone who's an expert in Squarespace to do that for you. It has e-commerce options, so you can have a shop. The downside I've found with people who have moved kind of from that to WordPress has been it's not scalable enough design-wise, or the SEO options aren't as extensive. Or if they want that more functionality, that tend to, again, you start sort of paying monthly, and the monthly fee keeps going up. But people like that because everything's taken care of for you. You don't have to do back-end maintenance and updates and things like that. That's all taken care of for you. Then you've got Shopify. Now, I know someone on LinkedIn mentioned about Shopify, and he says, oh, absolutely brilliant e-commerce shop, everything works great. And absolutely, agree with that. I have done websites for people, especially kind of an ethical fashion retail type of website I've done on Shopify. Fairly easy to set up. I didn't really find it very user-friendly, to be honest. It took me quite a while to kind of get my head around where things were, but that maybe was because I'm used to WordPress.
You're the expert.
I know. I just found it.
I have no hope.
Oh, okay, where's that? Oh, it took me a while to kind of find where things were. Where I did get quite frustrated is in customizing the actual pages and getting the look you want. Now, there's lots of different themes out there, but then when you try and customize the theme, then it becomes quite difficult. And again, they use a different language, so you've got to kind of try and learn another language of code to try and change things.
But that has to be such a game changer, considering that most websites, if they had previously considered, right, we need to put some sort of purchasing aspect on our site, you were going into like tens of like 80,000, like, you know, were numbers, 80,000 pounds of, you know, people of what they're being quoted for a website, which actually you're like, wow, that is, if you're a small business, that's just crazy money, just to make sure you've got all the security. It's also, you know, making sure that it works, because nothing more annoying is there than when, you know, I'm having this row at the moment with a very high profile makeup brand because I can't seem to buy my products and it keeps on cutting me out. So 4 months later, something ridiculous, so we're still arguing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to use someone else. I'm actually quite patient. Somebody else would just be, it doesn't work once, I'm off. So actually, so I think Shopify, it sounds like it was a great option. Like, it is a great option for somebody if you're an SME, small business, for example, as opposed to hosting it on your platform.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, I'll go into that with what I use with WordPress as well, because there's a lot of extensive options. But again, it might be that initial investment that you have to do, the time of setting it up and everything. But it's getting easier and easier, and there's so many different options now. But Shopify, yes, if you want to get on and do it yourself and create the products and everything like that, that's kind of what it's built for. So they do make it very, very easy to do that. And yeah, it does, you know, it works straight out the tin. So if someone, and also what you're saying, yeah, thousands of pounds. I mean, I know people still now, as soon as someone goes, oh, I want an e-commerce website, in other words, a shop, you know, predominantly shop based, $4,000 starting. And I'm just like, but why? That's crazy. There's so many different, you know, even if you use WooCommerce on WordPress, which is the sort of the well-known used one. Once you've done it a few times, to set it up is actually quite quick, and then adding the products, you can duplicate, change things. It's very quick. So a $4,000 starting point is actually, you know, a bit crazy for a small business if they only want like 10 products on their site. It really doesn't have to be that expensive.
Well, we'll go into that afterwards. I just want to talk about Shopify and scaling if you have more and more products. So you're saying Shopify is a good starting point, but what happens if you want to scale? Is it supporting enough for that?
Well, what I found is with Shopify, when it came to sort of like, oh, let's integrate email marketing, and then let's integrate this, and then let's integrate that, they've got what are called apps, whereas WordPress has got plugins. And there are free ones, but you're quite limited. So a lot of them you pay, and they can get quite expensive. And that's where I thought, oh, this is going to start getting quite expensive. Whereas you've got, I mean, hundreds of thousands of plugins available on WordPress. A lot of them, really good ones, are available free, or you pay a really low yearly cost, like sort of, you know, $50, $60 to get some really good functionality. But even on the free ones, you get a hell of a lot of really good stuff. So yeah, so, you know, again, it's whether do you want to just all take care of it for you, you know, they do the updates and all of that, you know, it's secure and PCI compliant, that's fine. Some people are a bit scared to do that in WordPress because they've got to obviously make sure it's always kept up to date and it's secure. But, you know, I haven't ever had any options with people that I've done it with, but they maybe not, you know, if it's a huge site like a big retail, you know, obviously that you are going to be hundreds of thousands of pounds. They may use Shopify, they may actually use a custom platform and a different kind of program to all of the ones that we discussed. So, you know, custom built, especially built their own sort of system. So of the other one of the hosted ones is WordPress.com. Now, the difference between most people, websites out there who do WordPress tend to be WordPress.org, which is hosted on your own hosting. WordPress.com works very similarly, but it's hosted on their platform. Now, the difference is you can use it free, and everything's taken care of for you. You still have to buy your own domain name, which will be about £10-15 a year. But if you want your own custom domain name, so I don't know if sometimes you've seen like blah, blah, blah.wordpress.com as a website address.
I haven't actually seen that yet.
Okay, well, if you wanted the free, that's all you would get.
Okay.
If you want to use your own, so your businessname.com, then you have to pay, I think, $48 a year.
Okay.
Now, you obviously, like I said, you've got no external hosting, you know, you've got no updates and maintenance, that's all taken care of. But again, if you want more functionality, then you start paying more. So you can't use your own themes. So if you want to choose like now I'm going to have to go into explain what a theme is. This is where it gets a bit techy. So
like a, yeah.
So theme is kind of the style. It controls the look and the style and the feel of your website, you know, the layouts and everything like that. So there's hundreds of thousands of themes, you know, whether that's for Shopify, whether that's for WordPress, whether that's for Squarespace, whether it's for Wix, whether it's a WordPress builder, you have lots of these different themes. So you can kind of choose that, plonk it in, and you can add your content, great. Or some of them you can customize a bit more, some of them you can't. So if you want to use your own theme within WordPress.com, you can't do that unless you upgrade to a business plan, and that's $300 a year.
See, it's all these little hidden costs, isn't there?
So there's all these hidden costs. And I realized, you know, someone said, oh, I've got WordPress.com and I really want to use the theme you're using because it's really lightweight and it's got lots of functionality and I like the website builder and all of that. And I said, sorry, can't do because unless you upgrade to a business plan. So yeah, and then you've also got the costs of your custom domain name on top of that and any other extras when you want functionality. Apparently as well, the plugins can be a bit more expensive than if you use a self-hosted. And also some of the plugins are banned. So if there's maybe this is what I've heard and read. So I haven't experienced it, but there are certain plugins that they won't allow, which they would on self-hosted.
Why?
Don't know why. So, I mean, someone might be able to, watching this, may be able to tell me more.
If you know, tell us. Yeah.
Tell us, let us know. Yeah. So that's kind of all of that. So going to self-hosted, which is the last one. Sorry, I feel like I've been just waffling without you talking.
No, I'm listening. It's all really good stuff. No, continue, please.
So WordPress.org is basically, so it's using WordPress, but what you do is you host it on your own hosting. So you install it into your own hosting. What I love about WordPress.org as well is it's open source. It's not tied to any corporation. It's not tied to a private company like Shopify or Squarespace or anything like that. This is open source, which means everyone from around the world, you've got lots of developers all input into it to build it and maintain it and improve it. So it's not owned by anyone. It's also obviously free. I find it pretty easy to use as well. As I mentioned, you've got plenty of free and low cost plugins, and plugins basically are things that you can add to create more functionality. So for example, if you want a form on your site, that's generally a plugin. If you want to have a shop on your site, that's a commerce plugin. If you want a payment button, that's another plugin. If you want to have maybe an event booking, like if you want to do a workshop or something, that's another plugin.
Book a consultation call, and this is where it's interesting for marketing because, you know, like a lot of the times where you're saying to clients, well, could you just add that button? And no, computer says no, or website says no. And it's because there's no plugin, or they're going to have to cost, or they're going to have to pay for it, or it's just not available. So we see it from we see the journey that the customer has, because nowadays everybody is on, you know, they've got a computer in their hand now. Everybody has. So ultimately it'll be a case of, you want to make sure that if there is a quick purchase to be made, it can be done very quickly and smoothly. Or, okay, I need to make that decision now, book the call, you know, attend the event. Absolutely. No one needs to be faffing around. We just don't have the time. We will just switch off and you will lose that customer, won't you? So it's really interesting to hear what the restrictions are on each level. And what can be worked on and what can't.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing with using WordPress, you can still use what's called a Shopify buy button.
Okay.
And I think it costs you about $9 a month or something. So you can have an account with that. You can enter all your products on there, and then you embed it in your WordPress site. So you get all the functionality of Shopify within your WordPress site. And then it means your WordPress site, you can kind of customize to look how you want. So you've got that flexibility with it. So there's lots of different options. And sometimes
WordPress, I was just going to ask, is WordPress the only one like that that does it. So when you talk about self-hosted, like, because this sounds amazing, I'm like, oh my God, who else could there be next to it? So yeah.
You do get other ones. There's other ones like Drupal and Joomla and all of that, which again use different things, but I've tried using them in the past, and it's like, oh my goodness, that
different
is really
coding
difficult.
or just not as many
Yeah,
plugins.
just set up coding, editing. I just found it incredibly hard, and I thought, if I can't figure it out, I don't know how any of my clients would be able to even add a blog. Sometimes, you know, it will change things and edit things. I found them really difficult. So yeah, there's Magenta, there's Big Commerce, there's hundreds which you can also self-host as well, but WordPress is one of the most popular because it is very easy to use. It's very flexible, it's very scalable. You've got lots of different options, and you can customize it quite a lot and quite easily. And there's so many people who use around the world, and so many developers, that literally, if something happened to me tomorrow or I disappeared, people could take that over and they could work with it. So I think it's good for, you know, the client peace of mind. You know, they can move on whenever they want. They're not tied into a custom built website, which no one else can edit and work out, and then they'd have to start again. So I quite like that you've got that continuity. The one downside of the WordPress.com is obviously WordPress sites in general around the world are very prone to attack by hackers. Because there's so many in the world, it's one of those things like, oh yeah, let's attack them because there's so many. So they're always trying to find loopholes through sort of side doors, if you like, when something's not updated, or, you know, if a plugin isn't maintained, or you don't keep updating the back end, that can open up, you know, gateways, doorways, security kind of breaches, if you like, where hackers can get in. So again, you know, there's plugins that you can put in to help prevent this and stop attacks from happening. And obviously you've got to keep that backend updated all the time, or pay someone to do that for you on a monthly basis. So I mean, touch wood, I've never to date had that happen to a client site, that it's been hacked or compromised.
Mine's been so secure because I pay Karen to do that. This is why I'm like, no.
I just hope I'm just saying touch wood, because I'm just like, you know, someone's probably going to go, I'm going to try and hack one of Karen's sites to prove it wrong. I hope. I hope not. But yeah, I mean, no site really is immune, WordPress site in the world. But obviously, you've got to keep that maintenance and updating, you know, your themes and your plugins and the WordPress itself, but it's very easy to do. So
now, I don't know if you've had much experience, but what are your views? I've noticed a lot more people using platforms like Kajabi for sales pages, lead pages, all of that. So, which is great, because sometimes, but I mean, I can understand if you've got a marketing system in place, so you're thinking, right, CRM, sales, everything will go onto this one platform, and it's quite expensive. Well, it's, you know, unless if you know that you're going to make that money to earn it back, that's great, you know, like most of these tech things. What are your views on that? Like the difference between, because I, for example, use my sales page, like every product page or service page on my website is like a sales page with a call to action. So I don't necessarily need something like that. But it's interesting, and I did get like shining lights and, you know, like flashy eyes going, oh, wow, this is amazing. But actually, when I looked at the functionality, it's like, not yet, if at all, because I think somewhere along the line, I think I'd prefer to have it on my website, but that's just me. So what's the pros and cons of using something like this? Because this is becoming really popular for sort of CRM and
I mean, there's free CRMs out there, and there's ways of connecting that up to your website, in and out your website, and that obviously that takes a little bit more setup time, but then your costs ongoing are less. Kajabi, yes, I've seen it become a lot more popular. People were using it kind of for, you know, landing pages and courses and taking payments, all that, but now it's
emails,
kind of, you know, it's expanded so much that people are going, actually, I'm building my whole website on there. So you are paid. So from that point of view, yeah, it's kind of a full marketing website CRM machine all in one, and it starts from $119 a month. So obviously for a small business starting out, that is quite a chunk.
That's a lower price than what I've heard. So yeah.
Well, that's the starting for the basic plan. I don't know how much you get with that, and
Right.
you know whether that'll have all the stuff you need. I think you get one website and you get so many contacts and stuff like that. So, and then it's obviously it goes up. But yeah, personally, you're putting it to yourself. I mean, as long as they're around and they keep going and the business is booming and they stay, you know, they stick to what they say their prices are going to be and everything, you know, you're fully putting your whole business in their hands. And that's what scares me a bit, because you've got no control over it. If they disappear tomorrow or something happens, everything's gone.
Which, you know, again, we say that about Facebook. It's not going anywhere.
No. And
Yeah.
you know, so you know, there's risks to everything.
Yeah.
I mean, what I like about, for me, what's key about using WordPress is like, because it's self-hosted, I can choose my own hosting, and that's eco hosting.
Yeah.
You don't get a choice when you go to any of the others.
No,
It
that's
depends
true.
what their, you know, what servers they use and where those are based.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think for some people, I know there was one, I think Jill was saying on LinkedIn, she's moving
Yes.
everything over to that.
And
It'll be interesting to
couple of
see
people.
kind of how customizable it is, and if you can get kind of a different look and feel.
Most people I know in the online business space will use something like Kajabi, for example. So I have seen it, heard lots about it. Like I said, was very tempted. But for me, again, if you're a, you know, my needs are so basic in comparison. I like to keep things really simple and have the conversation in the first place, because there's so much on a one-to-one side that I can do, which, you know, again, there's all these functionalities like book a call or chat or things like that. It's all there. But for me, it's like, I don't need that cost just yet. And I'm still playing around with a few things. So yeah, this is absolutely fine. So it's really good to see the range actually throughout, sort of, like you say, your free version straight up to perhaps even like a Kajabi of like where you want to be, and figuring out, I mean,
and you could use both anyway, but obviously you've got the cost then of your website and the maintenance and hosting, and then you've also got your Kajabi side of things as well. But there's so many CRM platforms out there and things and ways you can connect. As I say, it might just be a bit extra time kind of setting that up, and then maintaining that. And again, it's looking at the company. I mean, I look at the company and I look at it based on its values and ethics and its eco credentials. And if it doesn't fit, then I don't really want to use it. So, and I don't really know what Kajabis are, but again, just another quick thing as well. I mean, in terms of what I've done with a lot of people as well, if they haven't got the budget to create a big website yet, what you can do as well, even with something like the self-hosted WordPress, is you can just stick up a landing page. It doesn't have to be like coming soon. I mean, you can put in the information that you want. You can have, you know, your logo, content, a bit of information. You can have an email sign up. So that's very easy, quick, and
I
cheap.
think that's so much better than doing a coming soon blank. You know, talk about yourself. You should be able to at least do that. And say, like, why are you here? Who do we serve? You know, what, you know, just give us a call. What's the email? Whatever it may be. Definitely, instead of putting a coming soon, it's easy enough to work that first page. And in fact, we've got a brilliant chat coming up with Lynn Stainthorpe, because you two work really well together, but also seeing how you use your branding to sort of like, what's that front page? Am I in the right place? Sort of like, what's the information that you've got to have there, which we'll have next week. But a question for you. When you're working with a client, and how far, like, what sort of information do they need to give you? Is it their responsibility to go, this is my business plan, this is how I see it scaling? Or do you ask those questions? For me, as a business owner, like, you know, I probably wouldn't think to tell you these questions. And yet, just by you describing the different platforms and the hostings, there's obviously so much to consider. You would probably think of these things, but is that something we should think about as clients? Is that something that we you know, to brief you properly so that you would give us the best advice, or whoever we worked with, for example?
Yeah, I think for some people, I mean, you don't know what you know or don't know until you do.
Well, last year, no one, you know, the pivot word came into place. But having said that, you know, I think a lot of people switched, didn't they? So, I mean, from your opinion, like, is it something that, how can we best help ourselves when speaking to you?
Well, what I tend to do is I have a chat with people and I kind of get a gauge of what they're after. But what I do have then is an extensive like website consult questionnaire. And that kind of lays out everything, and I get a really good idea from that what they're looking for and then what is suitable. But if they come to me first of all and they go, well, look, I've only got a couple of £100 budget, what can I do? You know, if they need a holding page, yeah, that's possible. If they want, you know, to create a whole website like that, then I would say, okay, well, maybe you need to think about going to something like Wix and doing it on there. And you know, and there's always option. It is a lot of, there's people I've worked as well who do like a DIY, and some of them have done it on WordPress, some have done it on other platforms. Obviously, when it comes to other platforms, I've muddled my way through sometimes to try and figure it out. But when it comes to WordPress, I can just do like a consultancy day rate and just help them troubleshoot tech problems. So yeah, I think it's, but for people, you know, looking to work with the website designer, I think it's kind of knowing, you know, what is the goal of your website? What do you want the website to do? You know, having an idea of what pages that you want on your site. You don't need to know how it all works and the structure and that, because that's something, if you're working with the web designer, it should help you work through to get that right. But it's knowing kind of what is your budget, what is the goal of your website, and you know, have an idea of kind of who are you serving, who do you want to target and attract. Because again, if people are very confused about what they're offering and who they're offering it to, then they really need to go and work on their branding first.
I think that's the really interesting side of it. I sometimes then will see a client that's just done their website and you'll be like, well, where's the email sign up? Or, you know, actually, aren't you offering this? Where is it on here? So I'm just wondering if it's worth, like, if you could speak to somebody on the marketing side, if you've got a marketing friend, to be able to look through it, or just pay for a power hour just to go, right, what is it that they need to do? Like, here it is, this is the design. Can we just make sure? Because again, somebody's about to launch and you've just gone, you need to have this. If you're driving traffic to that site or people are checking you out, then they need to make sure that you're nurturing, capturing them and nurturing them as well. So just something to think about.
Definitely. I think they've got to have an idea, and that's one of the questions asked, sort of how are people finding you right now, and how do you want people to find you, or how do you plan to promote your website once it's done? And of course, if they go, and they will buy this, that, and it goes, well, actually, you've not mentioned any of that functionality that you want in here, so you need to then have to have this. So they don't necessarily know how the tech works. So it's just asking, you know, those right questions. And I think great if they can do like a power hour with someone like you to get kind of that marketing plan together, or do a marketing strategy session with someone like yourself, you know, then they've got that idea. They'd be much clearer when they come to me, and I would then know what they need out of the website and which platform they would need.
I mean, there's so many people doing this. Like, you might have friends out there that can help you, or like you say, there might be a professional that you know that you just tie this. It just would save you so much money in the long term, is my view. Yeah, absolutely. And I just, again, from a marketing perspective, we understand consumer behavior. So again, you know, I will always remember that there is a really beautiful client that I was working with, and very visual, spending so much time on Instagram. And it's like, well, Instagram's a mobile app, and yet your website isn't mobile friendly for viewing or purchasing. So you're spending all this time thinking about, oh, we'll just promote ourselves here, but does it link back? So it really was a bit of a shocker for them to go, it doesn't quite sync up. So you know, rather than spending lots of effort in different places, how can we work smarter to make sure that it flows much more smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to have a mobile responsive site. I mean, Google is penalizing those that don't anymore. So
surely no one has that, like, doesn't have one now.
I've gone on my thing, and it's like this, and I've had to scroll in, you know, I've had to sort of zoom in to try and So yeah, you do have to sort that out, because you will be penalized in the rankings and search if you have not got a mobile site. Yeah, so it needs to get sorted out.
And final sort of point to this as well, and the reason why this will always be evergreen content, because as far as I'm concerned, everyone's going to start up new, they're going to see new cheaper options. So this is great, but also we have shifted in how we're purchasing. So whilst people might think, oh well, online, you know, once things are open, up again, it won't really matter, we've held on. Nah, you know, I think that the way that we're living, the way that we're working, the way that we're purchasing will be different, and we now have that choice. And actually, I think it's probably catapulted some businesses to shift and move this aspect of their business, but I definitely think digitalization is definitely going to be a huge thing going forward. You know, we're talking quite basic here, but you know, other people are talking about AI and you know, augmented reality.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, yeah,
wow,
but sort of way out there, quite scary. But yeah, I think you have to have both. Don't leave, you know, don't put all your eggs in just one basket and just run it. That's what the pandemic has, you know, taught a lot of businesses, and a lot of them have sort of gone and, you know, they're sorting out their website now. They are, you know, making sure there's a way to purchase something. And what, interesting enough, what they did in Ireland was they offered them a grant of up to €2,500 for any small business wanting to get a website online, and you had to get the money back, you had to have a payment option on there.
Yeah, amazing.
So I thought that was a really good initiative.
Thank you so much. There's so much information and really insightful, but also I think for me, more important that someone listens and hears how not to have a headache later down the line. So yeah, thank you so much. If you have any questions, if you're watching this and you have some views and thoughts on the different website platforms, we'd love to know, like, you know, what's your experience been? Pop them down in the chat on either mine or Karen's page, and we'll get back to you on that. But it's been really helpful, and you know, we're all learning, so it's all really good to understand what everyone's using, what the benefits are. So thank you very much. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.